Hi everyone, welcome to History Doodles. Today we're going to be talking about the Goths and the last days of the Western Roman Empire. Without further ado, let's get into it. This is the Plunder of Rome by Joseph-Noël Sylvestre, and I think it's the most iconic image of the fall of the Western Roman Empire. What we have here is just a disastrous moment in Roman history, an event that Christian chroniclers at the time said confirmed their suspicions about the coming of the Antichrist and the imminent end of the world. What happened was that a group of people called the Goths got behind the city walls of Rome and went on a 3-day spree of looting and destruction through this famous ancient city. It was the first time that something like this had happened in over 800 years, and it completely shook the citizens of the Roman Empire. Now, from the Goths' perspective, the Romans had this coming for a long time. It was frankly a milestone for the Goths in their journey from becoming a group of destitute refugees to the rulers of some of the most powerful kingdoms in Europe at one point in time. It was a changing of the guard in a way. The Roman Empire, or really just the Western Roman Empire, because the East would continue on for a long time, would be on its last legs and collapse by the end of the century. Now, I mentioned that the Goths had at one point been refugees, and that is an interesting point in history that is part of a crazy chain reaction that really helps shape the rest of how Europe will shake out. And before we continue, if you're wondering why we use the word Goth in a different context today, to refer to someone that has like eyeliner and obsession with darkness, it's because that word has become synonymous with outsider, dark, and barbaric since these people entered the history books. And that legacy continues up until today. Anyways, at the end of the 4th century AD, a people move into Europe from the Eurasian steppe. And these were a nomadic people who have a very hazy origin story. But their arrival into this part of the world causes a huge problem for the settled people of Europe. And this group was called the Huns. Now, when the Huns show up, they start preying on the settled people in Eastern Europe. And they subjugate, enslave, or kill pretty much everyone in their path. The Romans were frankly terrified of this new group and the threat that they posed. The Goths were one of the groups that were living in this area, and a lot of them decided that they would rather take their chances as refugees and migrate rather than fall under the control of the Huns. And so in 376 AD, a bunch of them show up at the Roman border seeking entry into the empire. And things after this point get out of hand really quickly. The Romans were just horrible to these desperate Goths, and they were literally selling them dog meat in exchange for their children as slaves. So the Goths understandably put up an armed resistance, and this resistance quickly turns into a full-out war. The Goths start taking over towns, and the Romans organize a legion to come fight them at the town of Adrianople. And this famous battle would end with a dead Roman emperor and a victorious Goths. After this, the Goths were given some land to settle in, but they were never really treated as equals or at all acceptably by the rest of the citizens of the empire. They were used as fodder in Roman civil wars, and at one point the Goths coalesced behind a leader named Alaric. Alaric is actually shown as a spectator in Sylvestre's painting here. Now, under Alaric, the Goths became pretty much a rogue group inside of the empire that would sometimes cause a lot of damage and sack their towns, as they did in Greece in the east and northern Italy in the west. It kind of sounds like a modern Republican's worst nightmare, a group of marauding migrants just raising hell across the country. Eventually, the Goths under Alaric went for Rome itself in 408, 409, and 410. And their campaign in 410 is the one from the painting that we started with. Later on, the Goths negotiated with the Western Roman Empire and were given part of the empire in Gaul. And then they solidified their status with some royal intermarriage. By the end of the century, the Visigoths, who were distinct from the Ostrogoths, who would be in the east, had solidified their power, and they started to expand across what is modern-day France and Spain. They would rule that area for hundreds of years, and in a weird twist of fate, in some ways they carried on the legacy of the Romans, who would fall away during their rise. The way the Goths carried on the Roman institutions, through their laws and civil structure, into the Middle Ages is a funny and weird way to end such a contentious relationship. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, it'd be very helpful if you could like and subscribe. I hope to see you next time. Bye.